Well, good morning folks, and welcome back to the channel. And since last week's video, we've moved into France, and we're in a rather beautiful town called Albi. I'm assuming that's how it's pronounced, not Aldi. A little bit more expensive than Aldi. Last night, it looked as though the conditions weren't going to be that great, so after tea, Nicola and I just wandered out for a little bit of a dander around the village. Yeah, schoolboy hour. The conditions were incredible. Now, while today is going to be, from a touristic perspective, a very nice day, I think it's going to be clear skies. Now, once again, I am out shooting a little bit for myself, but again, thinking about a potential magazine article as we make our way through France. And Albi really does lend itself to some beautiful images. There's a couple of quite famous viewpoints along this river. I'll put the name of the river up below. Where we were last night, looking back towards the cathedral, I assume it is, and the citadel, or where I'm standing right now with these, in below train line, where I'm standing right now, in below these beautiful arched stone bridge, looking to the citadel and looking on towards the other bridges in the town. I have a choice to make because it's 30 minutes before sunrise. I don't think there's a huge amount of cloud in the sky right above me. However, looking across, a little bit dark in there, looking across to the east, there's a few wispies. So right now it looks as though shooting this way may be of most interest, especially from a sky perspective, but I don't necessarily think the composition's as strong. If I was to now sort of scamper through town and stand on the opposite bridge, I think the composition is stronger, but the sky may be weaker. But you know what? I think I'm gonna take a chance and head down towards the bridge. Now, no doubt we'll be back out there again this evening shooting for sunset, but I thought I'd maybe see whether there was an angle for sunrise as well. I hope as that sun starts to rise, there's not a bunch of wispy clouds right above me as well. Weather radar was telling me that it was pretty much 20% cloud, very little cloud in the sky at all. It's difficult to tell, but I think I'm going to take a wander down to this bridge down here and seize what we can seize. But yeah, welcome to France. Welcome to Albi, not Aldi. So guys, let's just say all plans for the morning are just going out the window. As I was walking down towards my preferred spot, and apologies for the cars coming by, obviously the French citizens of Albi are waking up to go to work. Over here is kind of that sunset spot that I was talking about that we were down at last night. But actually just coming down here, and of course the sun rising to the east is just catching that pre-sunrise glow light. There's a little bit of cloud in the sky, and it's just creating some beautiful soft light against the side of the river over there, the houses and the old sort of brickwork. So I am going to take a wander along this bridge, but given the fact that sort of the sunlight is going to be illuminating this way, I might shoot this way this morning and then shoot back towards the citadel. But yeah, not really knowing this, as I only had about a couple of hours wander around last night, not really knowing the village at the time, it's making it all a little bit frantic. So I'm just trying to kind of just chill out. Oh, the other thing as well is, as I was walking down through the village, and even though we need to leave reasonably early tomorrow morning, I might be able to sneak out for an hour or so and maybe shoot some of the town stuff, and maybe do that tonight after sunset, because some of those old street lights and the cobbled walls and the cobbled streets, not sure you get cobbled walls, do you? The old brickwork. Right, enough rambling, Nigel. I'm going to take a wander across the bridge and see what it's like shooting back this way. And we have about 10 minutes to sunrise. Now, as you can see behind me, it's quite a nice scene. We have, however, lost, I think, any of that pre-sunrise glow. There must be a little sliver of cloud on the horizon that I can't see over to the east behind me here. We have lost that sort of pre-sunrise glow, and it also is kind of washing out the sky a little bit. However, I do see small streaks of cloud up there, so maybe if the sun allows, in fact, I could even see a lot more cloud just faintly over the bridge in the distance, some beautiful reflections out there as well. So maybe, if that sun is allowed in about 6 minutes time to just creep up over the clouds, we might start to get it. In fact, even while I've been talking to you, I'm not sure whether you'll be able to make that out, but I can start to see a little bit more definition and light on the side of the cathedral. Some dude just asked me where the boulangerie was, and in my still in Spanish mode, I basically said, dude, you're in France? They're everywhere. Right, let's see how this develops. But I think for this morning, rather than head across to the other viewpoint that gives you the view of this bridge, I think I'm going to work this area here, not rush around too much, because that just takes the enjoyment out of it. And again, trying to get into my head that while this may not be ideal, I mean, it would have been wonderful to see some more clouds in the sky like we had last night. From a magazine perspective, it's still a nice image of the main feature of the town, some beautiful soft light. So the clouds above the cathedral don't seem to be taking on much colour. I really do think we have been blotted out again, unfortunately. So now we're probably going to have to wait until the sun comes up above the visible horizon and actually cast a little bit more light onto the cathedral. I'm actually shooting at the moment on the GFX in a 16:9 aspect ratio, mainly because the top part of the frame, the sky, just isn't of a huge amount of interest. Now, given the fact that things are not developing as I had hoped, I might take the opportunity to go back across the bridge and just see what the morning reflective light is like on these buildings here. Obviously, doing that, I'll lose, obviously, the cathedral. I'll also lose the lovely reflections on the aqueduct stroke viaduct. Goodness me, probably not going to be able to make that out, but there's about 3 buses on the bridge. There you go. Interesting as always, Nigel. Right, I'll put up this image here, or a couple of them maybe, as the light started to develop a little bit, and then we'll wander across to the other side of the bridge and see what it's like once again looking back onto the village. So we are definitely now getting some direct light onto the village. The problem I have is I'd really love to shoot this with the GFX, but sadly it's a reasonably wide lens and I'm getting a little bit too much of the sort of foreground, the trees in the foreground. I could crop that a little bit in post, maybe to a 1:1. And on that note, I then swapped over to the X-T4, and I've obviously got the 18-135 lens, and I was just experimenting there with a couple of crops, be it square crops, or again a bit of a 16:9 crop, but pushed in a little bit more. Now, as that sun has risen, we're definitely losing any light in the sky now, so it really is trying to zone in more. Apologies for the traffic, by the way. It is really now about trying to maximize as much of the frame with the buildings rather than the sky itself. On a little tip as well, if you are shooting some urban photography and you don't really want to be disturbed from a tripod perspective and you've got a wall at hand, you can obviously 2 legs onto the wall, which means you don't use up as much of the footpath. Last night we had both the gorgeous light in the clouds, and because of the amount of clouds up there reflective down, we still had beautiful light on the buildings as well. But what I might do is I'll put up a couple of images from where I'm standing right now, and I'm going to wander back down onto the bridge and see what it's like shooting with the bridge as a bit of a lead-in line. Rather nice though. Might be time for a croissant soon, mind you. That's the morning session's over. Apologies for the abrupt finish, but the lights was kind of okay-ish. And then randomly another French photographer came up and he started rabbiting on in French, and I was like, don't speak French, dude. But that didn't stop him. He then proceeded to grab my arm and made me look at several, well, dodgy photographs of herons that he's obviously been taking. In fair play. And he just kept going on in French. And I was like, dude, I really don't know what you're talking about. I kind of tried to say to him, well, I could probably speak a little bit of Spanish to you. But he just carried on in French, carried on showing me pictures of herons. And by the time he had wandered off, which I think he told me to come with him up here, and I've always been told don't go with strange men, so I declined his offer. The light really had disappeared, and in fact on the citadel itself, that's what I was kind of going to go across and try to make an image of. But for me, there was a little bit too much light and shadow. Whereas I say, last night, that soft, reflective light was stunning. Look at this here, bad boy. Huge. That's what we were photographing down on the bridge. Right. Well, I'm going to wander back to the van, grab a second coffee. We're going to stay here again today. Hopefully, get out again this evening for a little bit of photography as well. For you, that'll be a couple of seconds. And hopefully, as well, try to avoid being accosted again by dodgy French photographers. I'm lost as well. Trying to figure out how I get back to the van now. Anyway, if I make it back to the van, hopefully see you guys in a few seconds. Oh, and I'll stick up a couple of images before I started getting accosted by said Frenchman. See you in a bit. Right guys, we are back out on evening watch. Been watching the clouds all day. Well, not all day obviously, because that would be quite sad. And I have to admit, they look rather promising. And in fact, this time last night, the light was much more subdued. So I don't want to say it too loudly because that'll likely jinx it. But we could be on here. Those high altitude clouds, a little bit of light as the sun dips lower down. We might be good. Now, the one thing about shooting this evening is it's obviously much busier. So I'm not actually sure how much footage talking to the camera I'll do. I might just focus on making some images, maybe do a little bit of voiceover. Now again, we don't have a huge amount of choice from composition's point of view. Certainly my favorite shot from this morning, just looking very quickly at the images back in the digital darkroom, was actually the one going across to looking across to the little village pre-sunrise light. The image that I really want to get with some nice sky above is obviously off the cathedral. And then last night, actually pointing towards the weir and some of the other buildings. That might also be an option as well. So we only have a couple of options, a couple of choices of composition, I think. Today as well, I've been out for a run and I actually went over onto the vehicle bridge. And actually it gives you the view of both this bridge and the cathedral as well. There's always bloody noise, isn't there? But we'll see how we go. And let's try to avoid any errant Frenchmen trying to invite me around to look at their heron or any other birds for that matter. So guys, as you can see, that light is developing rather nicely. Now it's not as intense on the citadel. Obviously the angle isn't allowing for that, but I'm still very hopeful with about 15 minutes before sunset that we are going to get some not only lovely light in the sky but also some reflective light. Sadly, the widest lens I have for the GFX isn't quite wide enough to really do this scene behind me justice. I'd love to be able to get all of the arches in of the bridge, as well as the full sort of scale of the village illuminated by that setting sun. And as expected, very busy, very noisy, not really conducive to a nice relaxing evening behind the camera. At least, however, as I sort of said earlier on, compositional choices are limited, so I don't really have to maneuver too far. I just realized as well, I wonder why my backside's so warm, because this has obviously been in the sun all day. It's quite nice. It's like heated seats. So with about 15 minutes or so, as I say, to go to sunset, we can now hope and pray that we get some light in the sky, because that's what really brought things alive last night and allowed me to shoot kind of towards the cathedral, towards the weir here, and even back towards the village as well. So hopefully. But I'll throw up the little image that I've done here, 16:9 on the GFX. Just wish I could have gone a little bit wider. Well, now we wait. That light has pretty much disappeared from the buildings and we keep our fingers crossed. As I say, compared to last night, the clouds look like they might be going to take on some lovely light, but I'm not too sure. Oh, and by the way, you may have realised that I've completely gone against what I said. I just realised no one can understand what I'm saying, or I can't understand what they're saying, so I might as well vlog anyway. Kind of removes a little bit of the embarrassment whenever you're just getting back into it. Whenever you're vlogging in front of people who probably don't understand what you're saying. And I also saw someone with the biggest selfie stick known to man. It was almost like halfway across the bridge, so all eyes were on him. Isn't it interesting that last night, at this point, the light looked like it wasn't going to do anything, and then it just went boom. Tonight it looks like it's going to do something. So I was just checking my camera timings from last night, and we wandered down here at 7 minutes past 8, and the light show had already started. 7 minutes to 8 now, and the clouds are starting to take on a little bit of golden light. As I say, that sun has now, I think it was 5 to 8, I think this sunset was. So 7 minutes past 8 last night. I know you can't set these things by clockwork, but I thought it was a little bit earlier than that, so there's still hope. Still hope with this photographer. GFX at the ready. So you can probably see the glow on my face that the sky has really kind of taken on some of that colour. Hasn't gone that reddish colour yet. And in fact, shooting towards the cathedral, it's a little bit too contrasty because there's not a huge amount of reflective light on the cathedral itself. So I turned myself facing the weir. But for me, there's a modern looking building, quite a shabby looking building, that's kind of impossible to remove from the frame, so I don't think it really works. Maybe it would work if I was further away and it would be a smaller element in the frame. But yeah, the reflective light that we got last night on the buildings doesn't seem to be happening at the moment. So 7 minutes to go. Well, 7 minutes until 7 minutes past 8. Yep, I think we're on. So behind us here, furthest part from the sunset, has definitely now taken on that lovely or that lovely purpley tone. And then behind me here, it's probably going to be a little bit too bright still. Still very, very orangey. And sadly still not taking on a huge amount of reflection on the cathedral. Now what I have done is, after what I said before, I have actually went to the widest focal point on this lens and included that less than picturesque building, because it did allow me to bring in more of the sky and actually more of the reflections. I've also I noticed in this morning's images, I wasn't shooting with any filter on, and there was a little bit of ripple in the water. So I've actually put a 3-stop filter on. Now, as that light goes down, I can probably remove that as well, just to smooth out the water, give a bit more of a sort of a calm, serene feel to the image. But yeah, I'll go back to shooting here and maybe over there, but catch up in a minute. Don't want to miss this light. It's rather beautiful. Well guys, it lit up. Still don't think I made the best from a composition point of view. I think I was so busy kind of just watching the light develop that I probably should have been working a bit closer on the composition that I wanted. And obviously once I started shooting again the cathedral, I needed to bracket those shots because the contrast, there really wasn't a huge amount of reflective light being shone onto the cathedral itself. But still a rather nice evening, and in fact a rather nice morning. I still think now I obviously haven't seen the images from this evening, but I still think my favourite images were from this morning, looking actually towards these buildings over here. The pre-dawn light, just that lovely soft glow. Really, really nice. Right, well, I think I'm going to call it quits there. There's still a little bit of light left in the sky, but I'm going to take a wander back to the van. Actually leaving here tomorrow, and we're pushing further towards the French Alps, where I think the weather might be a little bit changeable. And by changeable I mean snow and rain. A few images from around the village again. Maybe we'll get out into the wilds next time. But until then, thanks a lot for watching. Until next time, take care. Bye bye. Scooter!